Long, long ago, in a land that I know, almost too far away to believe, began a great tale I use to regale the children on Christmas Eve. It tells of a creature with a curious feature that sets him apart from the rest, a great mighty gargoyle who was named Hargoyle for the heart-shaped patch on his chest. Now, back in that land, there were castles so grand and cathedrals that reached for the skies, and bat-winged creatures lived up on those features away from our curious eyes. For everyone knows, and it's true I suppose, that a gargoyle must never be shown, for if it is seen by just one human being, it will instantly turn to stone. And so it was thus that away from us, up high on a stony mass, a litter was had by a mother so glad to give birth to 3 boys and a lass. When they opened their eyes, to their sudden surprise, they saw that one of their brothers had a heart-shaped thatch, a furry white patch on his chest, quite unlike all the others. "A heart is too pretty," his brother said. "Pity, you have to be scary and frown." But to his chagrin, mother cautioned, "A kin is not one you should ever put down." "What makes him unique," she said, stroking his cheek, "may well be his destiny. This heart-chested gargoyle, whom I will call Hargoyle, will always be special, you see." The siblings they moaned, but they weren't alone. Their sighs were heard by an intruder. A long, lanky cad, so obviously bad, was scaling this castle of Tudor. For back in that land lived this terrible man, an explorer called Snively von Poach. He strived to reveal that gargoyles were real, and so lived a life of reproach. His colleagues, they peeved him, they never believed him, they called him a quack and a goof. They said he was twisted, he swore they existed, if he could just gather some proof. And so up the spire he climbed ever higher, intending to capture one yet. This top-hatted geezer intended to seize her and drag her back home in a net. The hatchlings were fighting and too busy chiding to hear what came over the ledge, laughing at Hargoyle, the newly born gargoyle, when Snively peeked over the edge. Their mum did her best to cover the nest, spread her wings to ensure they weren't shown, but then when she turned, their little hearts burned as mother transformed into stone. "Mama," they cried, though they kept it inside, afraid that Von Poach would detect them. They trembled and shook and hid in their nook 'neath the mother that tried to protect them. Von Poach in despair tugged his brittle white hair and he screamed, "It was real, now it's stone! They'll never believe it unless they perceive it themselves in the great hall of bones." And so, the next day, so rainy and gray, he returned with 20-odd men. With mallets and chisels, a winch in that drizzle did lower her into the glen. The hatchlings all cried from a belfry up high as their mother was taken away. At Hargoyle they glared and flatly declared, "This is your fault and you are to blame." At the great hall of bones there were mutters and groans as old Snively presented his prey. The gents were enthralled as he swung with an awl, till he chipped the whole darn thing away. As they stared at the rubble, he knew there was trouble. "It's nothing but rocks," said the men. He knew that he'd have to return to the castle to bring back a live specimen. In the days that passed, the siblings grew fast, but one thing was certain all through it. Hargoyle was taunted. They called him unwanted and made really sure that he knew it. They pushed him around and they put him down, and under their breath they groaned, "When the human comes back, we'll see Hargoyles attacked and turned into a pillar of stone." It was All Hallows Eve when a light in the trees informed them the siege they awaited finally began, so they hatched a plan to get rid of the one they hated. They found sticky tar and they poured it out far on the ledge where their mother was seen, then pushed in poor Hargoyle, who found that the tar foiled his chances of wriggling free. Well, Snively von Poach finally encroached, mounting the ledge with great zeal, and to his surprise he came eyeballs to eyes with the creature he swore was real. He grabbed, and the tot came unstuck from his spot as his siblings looked on in great shock. And they fell from the spire, the man and the flyer, who never did turn into rock. They fell, and they fell, and they screamed, and they yelled, as man and beast rushed to the ground. When old Snively hit, every bone in him split, and it made quite a terrible sound. "I'll get you for this," the man said with his fist, as Hargoyle leapt off of his chest. But then the old lout rolled his eyes and passed out. It seemed falling had gotten his best. Up on the ledge, looking over the edge, the siblings were on the attack. "You've a heart," they all moaned, "and you don't turn to stone. You aren't like us. Don't ever come back." As they stabbed him with jeers, he filled up with tears that rushed up and out of his eyes. He spread his great wings, turned his back on those things, and shot up and into the skies. He flew across the land all the way to Japan, then to China, and then Budapest, then to old Transylvania, down to Albania, but nowhere he went could he rest. Wherever he went, old Snively was bent on bringing this creature to light. "Living or dead, I will catch him," he said, "and finally I'll prove I was right. By carriage or rail, by foot or by sail, by steamboat or hot air balloon, by night and by day he hunted his prey and swore he would capture him soon." Time passes away, and eventually one day, so did old Snively von Poach. The final conveyance they took him away in? A regal black funeral coach. Hargoyle awoke when the morning broke on a cool and bright Christmas day. He knew in his heart he could make a new start with Snively now out of the way. He gathered some presents for each of the residents back at the old family nest. Surely his kin would let him back in, with their number one villain at rest. He flew through the night with all of his might and a sack that was big as a crate. But when he arrived, his spirits did dive to find that he was too late. All had gone wrong. In the time he was gone, his siblings were turned into stone. He wished he'd been faster to stop this disaster, for now he was truly alone. The years they flew, and the Hargoyle we knew a great mighty gargoyle became. But his troubles weren't done. He remained on the run as descendants of Snively they came. There was Angus von Poach and Dorcas von Poach, both sons of the elder deceased, who hunted this prize the whole of their lives, till they too wound up underneath. There was Elmer the elder, a blacksmith and welder, grandson of Snively the coot. He and Elmer the younger, they both died of hunger while lost in an Arctic pursuit. Airman Mortimer Snide from the mother's side, a grandnephew 2 times removed, chased the poor thing, kept the bat on the wing, till the wings of his biplane unglued. And then there was Gunter, a famous game hunter, who almost did capture our friend. But then he was spied by a cannibal tribe, and never was heard from again. Lastly came Myrtle in helmet and girdle, who said, "I will capture him yet." She would have succeeded if he hadn't freed himself from her big batterfly net. Hargoyle he soared over mountains and fjords, so tired of being confronted. This sad escapee flew across the great sea to a place where he wouldn't be hunted. When he finally stopped from exhaustion, he dropped in a land full of trees and grass, a perfect defense, a forest so dense, on the outskirts of Salem, Mass. He found what he craved, a nice comfy cave. No more was he forced to flee. He settled right in with a candy corn grin, determined to live happily. Despite what he had, there were times he was sad, when he thought of his lonely plight. But he brought himself cheer, year after year, soaring free through the moonlit night. Then one Halloween, he thought he perceived a sound that he knew from before. Staying quite brave, he peeked out of the cave to see what he could from the door. There in the clearing, 3 kids were sneering and pushing and shoving another. It made his heart sink and got him to think of his sister and both of his brothers. The one they tormented, upon whom they vented, a pleasant young boy named Drew, was used to these bullies, expected it fully, for sadly this was nothing new. They teased him at school, and they called him uncool, and they chased him with all of their might to take all the candy he held in his hand he had gathered that Halloween night. They pushed him down, he fell to the ground, treats scattered all over the place. They stood there above him, they mocked and they shoved him. A sadness washed over his face. Hargoyle was pained and he couldn't contain it. He burst up and out of his lair. Imagine the looks on the face of those crooks when they saw him dive down through the air. 'Twas a horrible sight and a terrible fright, and the bullies were instantly stricken. When the three noticed that a great monstrous bat was descending, they all ran like chickens. In a moment or two, it was Hargoyle and Drew, and they found themselves face to face. Then out of the blue, the young boy, he threw himself at the beast in an embrace. The creature was shocked, and he quietly talked when he told the boy, "Please don't be sad." "Are you kidding?" asked Drew. "They ran 'cause of you. You're the best friend that I've ever had." Then Drew reached down, and he picked from the ground a fistful of candy corn treats. He extended his hand to his newly found friend, who said, "Wow, these look just like my teeth." When suddenly, bang! A rattling clang informed them that someone approached. Imagine the size of poor Hargoyle's eyes when he saw that it was a Von Poach. It was clear to suppose by the shape of his nose that he hailed from the line of that hater. Then, without being coached, "I am Theo Von Poach, paranormal investigator. I have traveled the globe with my camera in tow. I will film you and prove it at last that you're really quite real. I will end this ordeal and my family's embarrassing past." Well, Hargoyle, he cried and panicked to hide, taking off and into the night, while Theo did stammer while fixing his camera, trying to get him in sight. And then young Drew, with the tip of his shoe, defended the one friend that mattered. He kicked Theo's shin and made that jerk spin. The camera, it dropped and then shattered. "Why, you dumb little skunk, I will get you, you punk," said Theo while fetching his lens. Grabbing camera, he stood leaping into the woods. Young Drew never saw him again. Hargoyle, he climbed up and into the sky in the hopes of getting away, and before he knew, he found that he flew all the way down to Botany Bay. When he landed, he saw, hanging stuck to a claw, at the end of one of his feet, a big orange sack that he had brought back, Drew's bag full of Halloween treats. For 50-odd days, through the heat, through the haze, through blizzards so windy and wild, he dipped and he swirled and he flew round the world to return all these treats to the child. From Sydney to Ghana, Beirut to Havana, from Juneau to Kalamazoo, from Pongo to Paris, he didn't know where was the home of his young friend Drew. Drew's family, they felt that he wasn't himself as he thought about Hargoyle and grieved. He told them all that he had met a great bat, but of course, he just wasn't believed. That cool Christmas Eve, as they lit up the tree, put reindeer that glowed on the roof, Drew fashioned a bat from an old welcome mat and insisted it go up there too. On that very night, in the middle of flight while Hargoyle was making a pass, a welcome surprise caught his big yellow eyes on the outskirts of Salem, Mass. On top of a house was a great Fledermaus, all covered in Halloween lights. That welcoming glow let the furry bat know it was young Drew's house, all right. Then while they all slept, through the chimney he crept, and under a tree so grand he emptied a sack, glad to be giving back all the boys' yummy Halloween candy. Then into the sky he flew with a sigh. Through a window Drew saw him and cheered. Next Christmas, the bat yelled, "I'll be coming back, and I'll bring lots of Halloween cheer." So if it's Halloween, don't be awful or mean. Don't you bully or threaten or lie. Or just like that, a giant black bat will descend from out of the sky. He will snatch your bag of Halloween swag, take your candy all back to his cave, then he'll give it away to those who behave when they wake up on Christmas Day. But if you've been good, and you do as you should, hang a stocking that's orange and black, then Halloween treats and candy corn sweets he will leave for you inside this sack. That's all that I know, my friends and my foes. I need neither a prize nor applause. My pleasure, it's true, is sharing with you the legend of Candy Claus. hope you've enjoyed my book, The Legend of Candy Claus. This book with these incredible illustrations by the talented Shamine King is available right now on my web store, voltaire.net/store. So come pick up a copy. And most importantly, Happy Halloween, miss, and Merry Christmas Ween.